There was this man named Jonathan. Now, Jonathan said when he was younger, he would go and visit his grandfather who lived in Louisiana on the bayou. Now, his grandfather had lived his whole life right on this sort of waterway that was known to be haunted. Now, he said this particular summer, he went to his grandfather's house and he was going to stay for a week. So he gets to his grandfather's house and his grandfather greets him and is so excited. And he's like, "Welcome, Jonathan, come on in and let me get you something to eat." Well, the first thing he noticed when he goes into his grandfather's house is there is this stench of something that is rotting. So he says, "Grandfather, like, what is that smell? Like, why does it smell like, something is rotting?" And his grandfather says, "Oh, it's nothing, don't worry." So he thinks, "Oh, that was kind of odd." He also noticed one of the rooms in the house was like boarded up. And he said, "Grandfather, why do you have that door closed?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm doing some repairs in that room. I just didn't want you to go in there and get hurt." So they start, talking, having a good time. And then nightfall came. And Jonathan said as soon as it got dark, his grandfather started getting really like anxious and antsy. And his grandfather told him, "I want you to go in your bedroom and you lock the door and go to bed." And he's like, "But grandfather, like I thought we could stay up late and, tell stories and stuff." And his grandfather's like, "No, go into your bedroom and lock the door." So he goes into the bedroom and he notices that his grandfather has put, this deadbolt lock on the door. So he locks the door and he lays down. Later that night, he hears kind of like a very loud ruckus coming from outside the room. And then he hears the front door open. And after that, everything was quiet. He goes to bed. The next morning, his grandfather comes inside the door and he's like, "Grandfather, where were you last night?" And he said, "Oh, nowhere. It's okay. Everything's all right. Like, don't worry." And he said, "Well, why were you so nervous last night and made me lock my door?" And his grandfather said, "Oh, just precautionary." So he said, like, every night he was there at his grandfather's, like, his grandfather would leave in the middle of the night and then come back in the morning. Well, the last day he is there, he goes into the bedroom, locks the door for the night, and he starts hearing that sound, like a ruckus sound coming from outside the room. This time, however, he unlocks his door, he goes out of the room. And over in the kitchen, like, he can see someone moving around kind of like really violently, and he hears all of these weird kind of gurgling sounds. And when he gets a better look at what is in this kitchen, he said it was this, muscular middle-aged man, but he had the face of what looked like a wolf. And he said this thing just noticed him and it started growling at him and snarling. It walks towards him and then grabs him by the arm. And the only thing Jonathan could think of at the time was to bite the arm of whatever this was. So he bites the arm of whatever this was and he runs into his bedroom and he locks the door. The next morning, he hears the front door open and he thinks, "Oh, my grandfather's home." He opens the door and he sees his grandfather coming inside. He is like completely disheveled. He's not wearing a shirt. And he notices he has this bandage wrapped around his arm in the same exact spot of where he had bit that thing that he encountered the night before. So he knew at that moment that what he seen was his grandfather. And he said he believes to this day that he's seen what is known as the Rougarou.